Forward. Okay, Tami, what's new that people need to know about?
What's new that's coming up? So we started the Out of the Doghouse work group on the seekingintegrity.com site. The January one was full. We have the next level 1 of Out of the Doghouse for men who were caught cheating starting next week, Monday, I believe. So no, 2/1, whatever date that is. So check that out. There is still room in that group. So any of the work groups that you see on seekingintegrity.com are 6-week-long courses. They're psychoeducation. So Scott leads a number of them. We have another porn addiction 101 starting. We have another sex addiction 101 level 1 starting. So there are work groups, but these are live facilitated, so they're not just videos. And the facilitator, Scott, does some. We've got other people, so check them all out. But they really are helpful in getting a foundation for whatever. Now let's talk a little bit, and you can help me with this one too. The Out of the Doghouse is different than the Sex Addiction 101 or the Porn Addiction 101. Because it's for men who were caught cheating. So they may not necessarily identify as a sex or porn addict, but they've been caught cheating. So do you have anything else you'd like to add on that?
Yeah, the Out of the Doghouse work groups are much more about understanding the relationship dynamic after betrayal, and repairing the relationship dynamic after betrayal, rigorous honesty, re-earning trust, things like that. The sex addiction and the porn addiction groups are much more about what is addiction, how do you recover from it. And then we also have Troy Love's new group, which is called Healing Attachment Wounds. This is for male addicts who want to understand and start to heal their underlying attachment wounds. These are the wounds, the trauma that drive addiction. Troy uses the Finding Peace model. He invented it and uses it. It's pretty wonderful. I was just copy editing his workbook for that group today. I think it starts February 7th.
On February 7th, yes.
Yeah.
And again, it's the live facilitated. Troy will be leading this one. And we just did a webinar earlier today, and he was talking about, the judge or the imposter. I mean, all of these different, like they sound like characters, but man, when you feel them in you, it's really helpful to be able to identify, own it, and then, as he said, if you name it, then you can work on it and not just, react. So I'm really excited about that. If you're still struggling with acting out, then I'd start with the sex addiction, right, porn addiction 101. But these other pieces are all being created to help go deeper. Again, not therapy, not treatment, but the psychoeducational components that are great in conjunction with the other work that you're doing. Work with your sponsor, work with your therapist, work with your peer group. And there's also peer connections within these groups too. You don't have to, but there are people that are participating in the groups that go, yeah, I would like to connect with other people, for peer support, because the groups are once a week for 90 minutes. So they're a limited amount of time. Now, many of the people also join in the drop-in groups that are on sexandrelationshiphealing.com or on these webinars. Great. But if the opposite of addiction is healthy attachment and connection, this is how we heal, is we learn to do things differently, but not by ourselves. We'll never think our way into our best thinking got us here. So, and one more, we will have a betrayed partner work group starting March or April. And then I guess 2 more, because then the couples healing from betrayal work group, I will be talking to the facilitator about that, and we'll get those dates posted. That's a 2-hour group, and it's for couples. So that, it's a little different price point, but it is an opportunity to work on some specific skills that we used to do in a live workshop in Los Angeles, but we just haven't been able to, or felt the need to actually bring 4 couples together in a room. This has been working really well. So that will be starting again too. So.
Okay. All right, let's jump into our questions. So this first one is a question left over from last week. Why do people call addiction an intimacy disorder? Is it only sex addiction, or are all addictions intimacy disorders?
All addictions are intimacy disorders. All, I mean, I always share with people that the form of acting out, it's still doing the same thing. You know, sex addiction isn't about sex. I mean, intimacy is being healthily connected. Like I just said, the opposite of addiction is healthy attachment. And whatever form of addiction I'm using, even if it's gaming and I've got my head down in my phone, you know, the whole time, I am not connected in a healthy and meaningful way to other people. I can use it to keep people at bay, but also I keep myself insulated, and no one really knows the real me, which of course, you know, for an addict, if they knew the real me, they'd hate me. And so therefore, you know, you'll know this piece of me and you'll know that piece of me, and those pieces don't touch because, oh my goodness, my brain will explode. So it's hard for addicts to, you know, to learn to connect in a meaningful way. Dr. Rob talks often about addiction is an intimacy disorder in that addicts seek intensity rather than intimacy. So if we're looking for intensity, whether it's, you know, chemical or sex or porn or whatever, you know, it's hard to shift that. But that's the work of recovery, to want to engage in a meaningful way, not just get the, you know, the flash of dopamine.
Yeah, you know, we were just talking about Troy Love's group, Healing Attachment Wounds. Attachment wounds and, you know, early life trauma is what we're talking about here. This is the driver of addiction. We learn early on that the people who should meet our needs emotionally, physically, otherwise, can't be trusted to do that. You know, I grew up, you know, usually, I always use myself as an example, but I'll go a little broader here. Usually there's addiction in the home, or a parent who is mentally ill, or, you know, there's a sibling who is physically or mentally disabled. So the attention just isn't there.
Or a single parent who's working 3 jobs, just trying to, yeah, I mean, there's just, or the big families, you know, there's 9 kids and no judgment, but there's 9 kids and you're in the, you know, it's,
yeah,
you just can't get it for whatever reason. And it could be well-meaning parents. They just can't do it.
So as a child, I don't get my needs consistently met. And because I'm narcissistic, because I'm a child, all children are narcissists, that everything is about them. I internalize it. I'm not getting my needs met. That means there's something wrong with me. So if I reach out to others, they will reject me, or they will make fun of me, or they will react badly, or they will just ignore me, or none of those outcomes are good. So I learned very early in life, don't reach out to other people. Don't become vulnerable. Don't try to get your needs met, because it's not going to go well for you. So I turned to an addictive substance or a behavior instead. So instead of turning to other people when I'm needy, like a healthy person does, I have an intimacy disorder. I'm afraid of intimacy because I learned early in life that intimacy doesn't bear fruit for me. You know, that tree is just bare for me. So I carry that message with me, and I push people away. And I turn to a substance or a behavior to numb out. That's what addiction is. When Tami says sex addiction is not about sex, she's right. It's about numbing out. So is alcoholism. So is gambling. So are eating disorders. It's all about numbing out instead of turning to other people. And unfortunately, as adults, like sex addicts, we'll turn to sex or porn instead of a loving partner who is actually willing to meet our needs and wants to meet our needs. But we're so afraid of being vulnerable in that way. So this is why we call it an intimacy disorder. And yes, Tami's right. All addictions are an intimacy disorder.
Well, and I hear often from the partners that are going like, I'm here. Why didn't that person turn to me? So the hurt, you know, the betrayal from not turning to that person. But, you know, you mentioned that the tree is barren, but sometimes the tree is not safe. I mean, like sometimes there's
unsafe,
yeah, like not only will it not produce the, you know, the healthy attachment, the security, you know, all of those things that you need you need. It's not even a want, it's you need. But sometimes there isn't safety, so you have to, learn to dissociate and take care of yourself and be in a container rather than, reaching out to others. And as you mentioned with kids being narcissistic, it's not, narcissistic personality disorder.
No.
They're self-set babies. Like they cry
Yeah.
because they need something. They aren't going like, well, is it convenient for mom to nurse me right now? No, it's like, I need this, so yeah.
And by the way, as for betrayed partners who are sitting there thinking, but I'm here, I'm willing to meet his needs or her needs. Why won't he or she come to me? This is one of the shitty things about recovery is, let's say Tammy's my partner, I'm the addict. Tammy wants to be there for me, but I'm afraid of Tammy. I'm afraid of Tammy because Tammy is the person who matters most. She's the person who can hurt me most. So what happens is I open up to my therapist, who I'm paying to listen to me, mind you. So that's pretty safe. And then maybe I open up to my 12-step sponsor because he has said, yes, he's willing to listen and he won't judge me. And then maybe I open up in meetings, and then maybe I open up to fellow recovering addicts. And then maybe I open up to my longtime best friend, and and then I talk to the cat, and and then I talk to the dog, and then I talk to the plants, and eventually I start talking to Tammy. But she's at the end of the line for me because she's the scariest person for me. So it's actually a compliment when they're talking to their sponsor and their therapist and not you. That means they love you the most, so you're the scariest. But it's also crummy for the betrayed partner to be the last one invited into the intimacy party during recovery. And it's not always like that, but it can be, and it certainly can feel that way at times. And that's normal. It's got nothing to do with you as a betrayed partner. It just means that the cheater actually does love you. And is scared of getting hurt and left, and
yeah. And I think, if you look at it, they need to practice on a whole bunch of different, it's like taking the baby steps in order to learn to have some skills to be able to sort of navigate it, even in an awkward way. But yeah, I mean, it is challenging. It's like, we have no guidebook, we have no roadmap, we have no skills to do any of this, and we stopped doing the problematic behavior, which was our coping mechanism. So now we are really raw in the, I am feeling emotions, I'm really scared, I have no clue what to do. Oh, and I have a betrayed partner who's really angry at me, and part of me really I understand why, but it's still like, oh my gosh, I'm terrified of all of this stuff. And so, learning to one step at a time, make some baby steps this is the long haul. There's no shortcut to recovery. This is a lifelong, I will never not be an addict. I will never not be an addict. I can be an addict in recovery, or I can be an active addict. I choose today to be an addict in recovery rather than an active addict. I almost slipped on that one, didn't I? So I'm actively working on my recovery. How's that?
There we go. It seems conversations about the possible downsides of frequent pornography use are emerging in the public discourse, like Billie Eilish's recent interview with Howard Stern. I feel the discourse shifting from an antiquated moral argument, viewing porn as morally wrong, to a health argument. Frequent pornography use is not healthy for the brain and can be a barrier to intimacy. I used to fuel my pornography use with meth, both of which I have abstained from for nearly a year. Good for you. And in my early recovery, I met with an ASECT, AASECT certified therapist. What does ASECT stand for, Tammy, please?
ASECT is the American Association of they're sex therapists. They are not sex addiction. So they are. That's very different. So
and the rest of this question says this ASECT certified therapist, which is again not a CSAT, not a certified sex addiction therapist,
right,
assumed I was merely full of shame for wanting to abstain from pornography permanently. We'll talk about this. I explained I have no moral hangups about porn, and that for many people it isn't an issue. For me, it simply overwhelms my brain and warps my sexual interest toward extreme content. I've come to terms with and celebrate the freak that I am. Okay, we'll let you use that
Welcome
word,
to the club.
but we won't love that word, but we'll let you
Yeah.
use it. But I yearn for emotional connectedness in my sexual encounters. After 3 sessions, this therapist admitted she couldn't help me with my goal of abstaining. Thoughts? Can I go first, please?
Please.
Okay. Yeah, the public discourse, there's still a lot of anti-pornography out there, and it's interesting. Conservatives and feminists are on the same side of the fence, which is a very rare thing to happen, but they're on the same side of the fence with porn. Even though research shows more conservatives use more porn than liberals, but that's a whole other issue. And we don't want to go there, but fueling your porn use with meth, that's very common. I hope you have discovered David Fawcett's book, Lust, Men, and Meth, and his Tuesday night group at 5 p.m. Pacific here, which deals with linking.
Sex and relationship healing.com. So.
Yes, thank you. Which deals with paired or fused sexual and substance behaviors. As far as an ASEC therapist, ASEC is a professional organization. If you need a sexologist, which is somebody who can help you work through sexual shame and come out of the closet, things like that, they're great. For sex addiction, no. Because they want, you can go in there with sex addiction, or in your case, porn addiction fused with meth, it sounds like, and they want to work on shame around porn use. They want you to feel better about using porn. They're missing the point entirely. Sad but true. Most of them, thankfully, will recognize, oh, you don't need me, you need a CSAT. It sounds like yours realized after 3 sessions, you don't need me, you need somebody who can help you deal with your porn addiction. And so, 3 sessions, that's fine. You don't waste a lot of time. Please find a CSAT, certified sex addiction therapist. You may want to look into our online porn addiction work groups. We've got some starting up again in February, and I'm teaching that one. But it is really unfortunate that some therapists, you can get a sexologist who will just stick with it and hammer at you and tell you, no, you don't need to quit porn, you need to feel better about it. And it is really, 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 truly counterproductive for an addict to be told, no, just feel better. Don't quit drinking, just have a better attitude about drinking. But I keep crashing my car into trees. It's just like, no. Now you mentioned porn overwhelms your brain and works your sexual interest. And this is really kind of what I wanted to get to in this question, because it does. Porn impacts the sexual arousal template. I'm a gay man. You can show me images of naked women from now until the end of time. I am never going to become straight or bisexual. It is not in my arousal template. I am 100% gay. There is 0 bisexual in me. It's just not going to happen because it's not in my arousal template. Porn doesn't actually add anything to our arousal template. What it does is it uncovers latent interests. And it takes us places we never thought of, places we never wanted to go. And suddenly we find ourselves looking at things that violate our values, that would have turned us off in the beginning as the addiction escalates. Anybody who has bisexual tendencies will discover them. So many straight guys get caught up looking at trans porn. So many, so many, relatively vanilla people suddenly are looking at kink and BDSM and all kinds of things, and it freaks them out, because it just doesn't fit their view of themselves or their morality or whatever. And by the way, there's nothing wrong with kink or any of that stuff, or trans or any of it. But if it's freaking you out, that's an issue. But what really happens with pornography is it takes us away from intimacy. It is the exact opposite of intimacy. Intimacy with another human being means conversation. It means give and take. It means negotiation. It means, the possibility of being rejected or told no. Porn never says no. Porn is always there. There's this infinite variety of porn. It's one thing after another, one video after another. And unfortunately, what happens is a single real world partner, let's say Tami is my partner. I think Tami is a very, very pretty woman, and she's incredibly intelligent, smart, and funny. And I like everything about her. But if I'm actively addicted to porn, I am not going to be able to perform sexually with this wonderful woman who I love dearly, because she can't push my dopamine buttons the way that pornography can. And this is the biggest issue with porn in relationships: is porn will create sexual dysfunction in a relationship. And it has nothing to do with my partner. It also has nothing to do with my physical equipment. It's up here. My dopamine is so screwed up from porn that Tami can no longer do it for me. I need 400 images streaming of different people and different this and different that, and goats and sheep and car horns, and I need all of it because my brain has become accustomed to it. And my arousal template, any weird little nook or cranny in my arousal template has been opened up. And by the way, once the arousal template is opened up, it does not get closed. Once you're aware of it, you're aware of it. You can't just forget it and go away. That was kind of a ramble. Tami.
It was, no, you said a lot of really good things in there. I want to start with, I'm glad that there's a conversation out there, because like we already know that prohibition didn't work. Just making something evil doesn't help. So it's, does it, if it doesn't hurt somebody, whatever. But let's talk about, because if you're on here, there's a reason, and that's, having the conversation about what it does to the brain is really important. I want to start with kids, because kids have access to all of this, and it's rewiring their brain, and and it's highly problematic. So we'll take them out of this. I really honestly appreciate that your ASEC certified therapist said, I can't help you, because some of them would have kept you and tried to keep working on you. And so there are other organizations, TCA actually does sex therapy, but also understands sex addiction. They are not just, there is no such thing as sex addiction. There's blogs on our website about the World Health Organization, understands that there is. So the DSM will catch up. So, but let's go back to what you were sharing. I love that you're looking for, I yearn for emotional connectedness. Great. So get a group of people together. Dr. Rob often talks about, having a posse to help you date. So there's accountability before you meet this person at the ugly coffee shop. And there's no romantic dinner and all of those things, but it is like Scott said, it's like having dinner. It's, it's getting to know somebody, not just, having sex with them. The other thing I want to talk about with porn addiction, two things. One is, I had somebody the other day that was like, I didn't cheat because I only looked at porn. And I'm like, well, you're reaching out to me. So I suspect that your partner, might disagree with that, and so it's problematic in the relationship. As Scott said, it creates a rift in the relationship, particularly if it's secretive, if everybody's okay with it and whatever, and as long as you don't try to coerce your partner into that, because I hear from betrayed partners, and I'm going to use he and she, but he tried to, he wanted me to watch porn and do these things. The other thing that happens is that gets stuck in your brain. And so the euphoric recall of that, so when you are having sex with a real person, the old married couple that, it's the same person, and your brain is, completely hijacked by these images that because they're way more interesting than the same body you've seen for 20 years. So it ends up being an ongoing problem, to learn to connect to a real person in a meaningful way. Again, the opposite of the intensity is intimacy. And so learning that what I don't really seek is, like, it's going to be a little more boring, but man, to be in a healthy, connected relationship with somebody and have somebody see you and understand you and care about the real you, not the compartmentalized version, that's a gift of recovery. And so it's worth the journey. I'm glad you're on it. I'm so glad you're advocating for yourself too, that you went, no, I really need this, because it can be easy to do that. As Scott said too, you look for a CSAT. There are some CSATs that are better than others. You can always email me, Tami, Tami, at seekingintegrity.com. Let me know where you're located. And I will, because they have to do therapy within their states. Don't go, well, it's COVID and they don't have to. No, they're licensed within their states. It's unethical for them, and against their license to practice outside. So tell me where you're located and I'll do my best to help you find a good therapist, to help you. So, but I also appreciate, the Porn Addiction 101 will be starting. That's on this site, seekingintegrity.com. Dr. David's group on Tuesday night. We have other drop-in groups. Join the conversation. You will not be alone, with the other men's drop-in groups. So.
My partner said his sponsor recommended 30-day no contact period. Well,
sorry.
Recommended a 30-day no contact period for recovery. Under what circumstances would this be appropriate and what would be the rules? I am initially, as I read this question, I read no contact, which is not a term I would use for this, but total abstinence, which we always recommend in early recovery, at least 30 days of total abstinence. No contact could mean like you two aren't even supposed to talk to each other, and a sponsor should never be the one recommending that. That should only ever come from a therapist. So I'm going to say I'm going to read this the way I initially read it, which is 30 days of total abstinence. That is very appropriate. It is necessary. We believe when people come to our treatment center in LA, we make them sign a contract, no total abstinence, and that means also total abstinence, not only with my partner and not only from cheating, but with myself, no masturbation. It is always appropriate for early recovery because sex addicts are so twisted up in the brain. They need some time to back away, to figure out what's problematic, what's not, to create a circle plan, which is a huge part of early recovery, to break through denial. Lots of things need to happen. It may be no fun for the partner, the betrayed partner, to have no sex for 30 days or 60 days or 90 days even, which would sometimes happen. But if you really want your relationship to recover, that means the addict has to recover, and that means the addict really, really needs this. And the reason I would never use the term no contact is it doesn't mean you can't hold hands or hug or give each other a peck on the cheek before you go to work in the morning, or hold hands when you go for a walk or things like that. That is yes, do that. But no sex for 30 days, 60 days, 90 days. That's pretty normal. Anything to add or just next?
Yeah, because my concern is that it's, my partner, literally no contact. And I would be highly concerned about that. And the other piece is, and I know it's a sponsor and that's a little different, but I often hear these things, my addict partner spouse said his therapist said, and I'm going like, unless you heard it from them specifically, then don't believe it. So I'm concerned, I don't know what your situation is. I don't know if you're married or if you're dating or whatever. I would, if it is, no sex, I concur with that. If it's, no contact, the opposite of addiction is healthy attachment. And how are you ever supposed to work on the relationship if it's zero contact? I would be skeptical, and I would want to have that person be working with a qualified therapist. Again, a certified sex addiction therapist is preferable. They have the training and the experience to be able to help best navigate this, and then have a session with the therapist as well, and find out more. So depending on what you really were implying, hopefully one of those answers is a fit. So
Okay, next one here. How often do you see addicts remain in denial and lie to their support groups or sponsors about the extent of their actions? How do they face reality if the spouse isn't involved in providing the basic facts? And then in parentheses, it says the addict is refusing to see a therapist or do recovery programs. Tammy, you go first on this one.
Well, this is, he's refusing to do any of those. What is your, like, this isn't about you providing facts, because you know that this is about what do you need for a healthy boundary for you. And if you're okay with him not working with a therapist and or doing any recovery, if you're okay with things not getting better, and you know that's, I mean, no judgment. I am not, please hear me, I'm here to support you. What I hear is you're troubled by this, and so what healthy boundary do you need to set? You know, if he refuses to do these things, is there a therapeutic separation either in the house or outside of the house? You know, what are the consequences, and not in a punitive way, but what, you know, what, no addict is going to change until changing is less painful than remaining in the same situation. And right now, you know, I use the Charlie Brown, you know, the teacher going wah 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 wah, you know, like an addict can hear that all the time, because we're highly focused on being able to continue to do what we want to do. Now, to go back to your first part of the question, now we've had guys that have come to treatment who had been lying to their sobriety groups, had been sponsoring people and all of this, and had been acting out the entire time. Right now, the record is 4 years. I just heard about somebody with 3 years not too long ago. So yeah, addicts lie. I mean, that's the challenge. It's when we are ready to not continue down the same path, when we value the relationship, when there are negative consequences, you know, then we go, oh, there's a different way of doing this. But, you know, I mean, right now he's in the catbird seat. He's can do what he wants. He can do it, you know, I checked in with my group. You know, so, and you're probably fretting about it, you know, get support for you, set healthy boundaries for you. And then if he starts bumping up against them, you'll either have good data, you'll know that, you know, he is absolutely digging his heels in and wants to continue the active addiction. You have to make a choice, or he'll go, oh, I need to change. So that's my thought.
Yeah, I mean, addicts, we are notorious liars. It takes us a while to break our habit of lying. That said, many of us break our habit of lying simply because we want to live a different life. I didn't have a spouse there pointing out all of my little foibles. I didn't need one. When I was ready to change, I was ready to change, and I came clean with my therapist. I came clean with my sponsor. I came clean with my fellows in recovery, and I started making changes. I didn't need a spouse for that. Now, that said, having a spouse is great motivation for a lot of addicts in early recovery. My spouse has laid out some boundaries, and I need to come clean. And then you start worrying about things like formal therapeutic disclosure, you know, which is more than the basic facts. It's all the facts. And yeah, but you can't get well. Betrayed partners, hear me, please. You cannot get well for the addict. You can't do it. As much as you want to help the addict and get well for the addict, you can't. It's up to the addict. Until I wanted to make changes, I didn't make changes. And I was in recovery for 2 years before I got a permanent sobriety date. You know, 2 years, I just wasn't ready to make changes. And then one day I was. And that's my sobriety day, because I wanted to live differently. I decided I can't live this way anymore. It's killing me. It's killing me. It's killing my soul. That's when I made the change, was when I realized I was destroying my soul. And that's no way to live. It was just very, very empty. So Tammy hit it. You can support yourself. You can set your boundaries. You can hope. But until he, you know, and it's bothersome to me. It sounds like it's bothersome to you that he's not going to the therapist or doing recovery programs. Bothersome to me too, because he's probably not going to get well until he's willing to do those things.
I say this all the time too, that I wish I had a magic wand that people could see how good recovery is. I know it comes from fear. An addict is absolutely terrified of giving up the only thing that they're holding on to. Kim Buck, she's co-authoring the new Prodependence book with Dr. Rob, but she did webinars. And one of the webinars a while back, she said, it's in the same part of your brain as breathing, addiction is. And I was like, oh my gosh, that makes so much sense, because we defend our right to breathe. We sure want to keep doing that. And that's how we hold on to the addiction. We're just hanging on, not realizing, everything we're missing by holding on to this little small piece. I always think it's interesting when you talk about a 3-circle plan, because the smallest circle is the stuff that we're avoiding. It's the smallest circle. The biggest circle is the stuff that we're engaging in healthy life, that we want to be in healthy connection. So the biggest piece of our life is the healthy stuff. The little tiny, but we're so, I want to hold on to this no matter what. And they miss it. And, until and unless they choose, to get into a real recovery, not just lying to everybody. So.
And lies are part of the fear of intimacy that we talked about earlier. If I tell you the truth, if you see the real me, you will run screaming from the room. That is, that's the tape that plays in my head 24/7, even now. And I know it's not true, and I've proven that it's not true by being open and honest with people, but it's not so easy. Dr. Rob has a prodependent lens on sex addiction. What are some other competing approaches? Who are leaders in this field? Dr. Rob, by the way, has a prodependent lens on everything.
Thank you. I was going to say that it isn't just about sex addiction. It's about,
is not, the initial prodependence book focuses on betrayed partners, because betrayed partners were the ones who were getting most beat up by the codependency model, which we can talk about briefly. Prodependence is more about, if I love you, I want to help you. There's nothing wrong with that, but I might need somebody to guide me on how to do this more effectively. This is the difference between prodependence and say, codependence. The codependence approach is kind of blaming and shaming on betrayed partners and loved ones of addicts and the mentally ill. It just kind of says, you're too controlling, you're too this, you're too that. Let's look at your trauma, which makes you be this way. And I'm sorry, bullshit. It's not my trauma that makes me care about somebody. I have a child who's an addict. I love my child. I'm not going to give up on my child. And to expect me to give up on my child, to expect me to detach with love, F you. It's not going to happen. Kids die when their parents detach with love sometimes, not always. Sometimes, tough love is the best approach, but, when you go to a prodependence-oriented therapist like Rob, who is the leader in the field, he invented it, but a number of others are coming along strong, Debbie McRae, Matt Wheeler, Kim Buck, a bunch of others. People all over the country, therapists all over the country are embracing this because codependence was so blaming and shaming of loved ones. There's a book that titled Women Who Love Too Much. What a joke. Can you really love someone too much? Yeah, you can love them ineffectively. You can try to help them in ways that maybe you shouldn't. You can try to do for them the things they should be doing for themselves. Maybe you need some guidance, but what you don't need is somebody saying there's something wrong with you that you still love this person, because there's nothing wrong with you that you still love this person. The fact that you still love this person means there's something right with you, I think. So anyway, that's my rant about codependency. You want to add to
Yeah, well, there's 400 books on codependence, and they tried really hard to get that in the DSM, and it didn't. There is, there are lots of other things, but codependence never has. And it got to be just part of the vernacular. So, people would say, oh, I'm such a, I'm so well, no, I mean, and I don't, there's not a label for, I'm not going to go, Scott, you're so codependent. It is a lens to look at things. It's crisis intervention. When somebody first comes, they're in a crisis, and there are legitimate, concepts and constructs that therapists can use to help manage somebody's crisis. That, so that's already done. And then
if I'm
there's
behaving codependently, I am meeting your needs without stepping on your rights, and you are in turn meeting my needs without stepping on my rights. We fit, and we fill in the blanks for each other. That's a prodependent relationship. I have weaknesses. Tami has weaknesses, but we fit and we fill in the blanks. We're better together. We're greater than the sum of the parts. This is prodependence. The world thrives in a prodependent state. Codependency, we don't even know what codependency is, because there's about 800 definitions. There's over 400 books, and they all have their own definition. And some of them are more blaming and more shaming than others, some of them less so. But at the end of the day, the work that you need to do in terms of setting healthy boundaries and continuing to love someone, but to do it more effectively, it's pretty similar with a codependence therapist or a prodependent therapist. It's just the lens through which we view it, and how, there's no pathology with prodependence.
right.
Codependence is this pseudo pathology that never made it into the DSM because it's not a real thing. I kept getting rejected because they're like, no. And finally, Dr. Rob, when he wrote Prodependence, kind of put words to it. Here's why nobody actually wants codependence to be a pathology, because it shouldn't be. So, go ahead.
Go ahead. No, the person's, I want to tag on the previous question. They said, yes. So yes, your partner says that his sponsor says no contact. So remember, addicts lie. So, and I can only imagine if that is actually true. Just remember, sponsors share experience, strength, and hope. They are slightly ahead of the other people. Getting professional help, working with a CSAT, I highly recommend that. We have the Sex Addiction 101, Porn Addiction 101. Those would be good guidance too. But, just like Scott was saying, we're supposed to support each other in a different way. It isn't like, no contact. So unless there's violence, now, if there's violence, on either side, I mean, if there's something else going on that obviously wasn't shared, that would be different. But, if it's a relationship and there's been cheating and, problematic behavior.
For a 12-step sponsor to say you can't have any contact with your partner, for me, that's a real serious overstep.
Well, it's either that the sponsor is an overstep, or that the addict is lying to the partner saying, my sponsor told me this, so.
Or there's something going on like domestic violence or something like that, where the sponsor says, no, you cannot be near your partner.
Right.
You're hitting her, or something like that. But it's still an overstep. It should still come from a therapist. Okay, is being moral a necessary part of recovery? For example, cheating is immoral. That's why sex addiction is the problem. I'm going to take this one.
No.
At Seeking Integrity, we don't take a moral stance on anything. We don't have a moral stance on pornography. We don't have a moral stance on casual sex. We don't have a moral stance on open relationships or cheating or any of that. What we deal with are sexual and romantic behaviors that spiral out of control and create problems in your life, whatever they are. The criteria for diagnosing sex addiction, there are 3 criteria. Preoccupation to the point of obsession. I am obsessed with sex. I am obsessed with porn. Loss of control, which is most often evidenced by failed attempts to quit. I have collected porn, thousands of images, and then deleted it. And then I don't look at porn for 2 weeks, but then I'm right back at it, and I collect thousands of images, and then I delete it. Or I say I'm never going to cheat again, but I keep doing it. I'm never going to the strip club again, but I keep going. So that's loss of control. And the third thing is directly related negative consequences. I'm in trouble at work. I'm doing poorly in school. My wife is really angry with me. I've spent ridiculous amounts of money. I got arrested in a prostitution sting. I brought an STI home, and now my wife has it too. Those are negative consequences. None of that has anything to do with morality. Dr. Rob's definition of cheating is keeping important sexual or romantic secrets from your partner. I mean, that's his definition of cheating. It doesn't even talk about specific sex acts. He doesn't say, yes, the strip club is cheating. He says, if you're going to the strip club and your wife would want to know about it and you're not telling her, then you're cheating. If you and your wife agree that you looking at porn is okay and you look at porn and you don't keep it secret, it's not cheating. Forget immoral. You've got to decide what your relationship boundaries are. And if you and your partner stick to those boundaries, you have fidelity in your relationship. If one of you is sneaking around and not sticking to those boundaries, one of you is cheating, or maybe both of you, if you're both doing it. Morality is not the issue. And unfortunately, we talked about sometimes sexologist therapists who will treat people who need sex addiction treatment, but they'll treat them for something else and it's not helpful. There are also therapists out there, fewer than there used to be, primarily religious oriented therapists, or what we call moralist therapists, who were trying to impose their values on people and telling them they were sex addicted because they looked at porn once, or because they cheated once. They're telling them that they're sex addicts when they weren't sex addicts. They needed a different kind of therapy, and then they were trying to change their sexual orientation. This happened a lot with gay men would get sent to these therapists, and these therapists wanted to change their sexual orientation, which is impossible, number one. But they were conducting this therapy under the guise of sex addiction therapy, and what they were doing had nothing to do with sex addiction therapy, and it was more harmful than helpful. So yeah, morality not part of the issue here.
Well, I'm gonna take it out of that arena. It's like drinking, again, prohibition. It was immoral to drink, and and where did that get us? And there's lots of people that can drink, and they can do it socially. Some of them do it more problematically, not whatever. I have a huge problem. I choose today not to drink. It's my issue. So moral or immoral is irrelevant. It's about what it does to me. And you mentioned the secrets and lies, and I wanted to tag on with that too, because it isn't just about knowing. There unfortunately are sometimes relationships where there's a power up, power down. For example, let's say the household, Scott, you're the only breadwinner, and I'm a stay-at-home mom, and I'm going to the strip club, and so I know about it, so it's not a secret, or I'm going to have an affair or whatever, but you're my financial security. You are, all of these things. Sure, I know about it, so it's not a secret, but I'm still not in an empowered place to be able to do anything about it, or so I perceive. So if both of you know about it, both of you agree to it, and there isn't coercion, all good. But it is the betrayed partners that reach out are struggling because things have been hidden. They have discovery. They are devastated, by the lies and secrets. And I hear often, the sexual acting out, whatever form it takes, they can get over that on a lot of levels, but it's the ongoing lying. So lying is a huge issue. And we had that question a few back of he keeps lying. It's a huge issue. How can you ever be in a trusting relationship when your partner is consistently lying? It doesn't serve the relationship well.
Next one here. This is in response to my screed a minute ago. Dr. Rob define watching porn as cheating because it's secretive, ? So if your spouse knows about you watching porn, it is not cheating, ? And then it says, calling porn cheating seems a bit of a stretch. Okay, so Dr. Rob's definition of cheating is the keeping of important sexual or romantic secrets from your primary romantic partner. He doesn't define porn as cheating or porn is not cheating. But if I'm watching porn and my spouse doesn't know about it, or I'm covering it up, I'm probably cheating.
Or your partner knows about it because they've had discovery, but it's against what was agreed to originally. So yeah.
So yeah, let me back up to that. Now, I'll use Tammy and I again.
Mhm.
So we're married, we're newly married, and we have decided that strip clubs are cheating and chatting with an ex is cheating. But if I want to watch porn once in a while, she's okay with that. So I'm watching porn once in a while, and she knows about it, and we're both okay with it. I am not cheating. But if we have agreed that no, porn is cheating, and I'm watching porn, I'm cheating. Period. Because I am violating our relationship agreement. Whatever our relationship boundaries are, if I'm violating them, I'm cheating. Now, here's the tricky bit. And guys try to use this as a loophole all the time. Well, she never said I can't watch porn. Oh, so you're watching porn 2 hours a day and she doesn't know, or she just found out and she's mad, but you're wondering why she's mad because she never said don't watch porn. So I'll be like, you've been watching porn for the last 5 years and you never told her. Why didn't you tell her? Oh, well, I knew she'd get pissed off. Why would she get pissed off? Because she thinks it's cheating. So if you're keeping it a secret, I'm sorry. There's a reason you're keeping it a secret. You can fool yourself, but you're not going to fool me, and you're not going to fool your partner, and you're not going to fool Tammy. We know why you're keeping it a secret. If your wife wouldn't care about this behavior, if your wife doesn't care that you're sleeping with your secretary, why doesn't your wife know about it? If you want to sleep around and you think your wife is okay with an open relationship, ask her. Don't keep it a secret. Ask her. Find out. You're probably not going to get the answer you want. That's probably why you're not asking her.
Well, so even in people that choose to have a polyamorous relationship, you know what? An addict still cheats. They still go beyond the boundaries. It's like, I don't have research on this, but I get the calls of like, we have an open relationship. We've done all these things and he's still cheating. I'm like, that's because he's an addict and he's going to cheat. And whatever you agree to isn't going to be enough, like you can that's the challenge and why it's difficult for partners to set boundaries, but why it's so important for addicts to have healthy boundaries. A 3-circle plan, you know what that is? It's boundaries. It's boundaries for an addict to learn to go, oh, that's a problem. Oh, that's going to be sort of a problem and I better pay attention to it, because we are clueless about, it's zero impulse control, zero, I'm going to do what I want to do despite negative. There's no thinking in that. Like I said, it's the brain going like, I want to go do whatever it is I want to do. I want to numb out. I want to escape. I'm uncomfortable. Gone.
Yeah. So, is porn cheating? Sometimes yes, sometimes no. Depends on the relationship, depends on the boundaries that are set, depends on how much secrecy is involved, depends on why it's secret, et cetera, et cetera. Sometimes it is, sometimes it isn't. We have no stance on that. And by the way, porn, a comment here, porn is very easy to keep hidden. And somebody's wondering why it didn't escalate to cheating. Porn often does not escalate to in-person cheating. Porn can very much be a standalone addiction. Guys can be hooked on porn for decades and never actually have sex with anyone other than their wife or their partner. And by the way, porn addiction work group starts in February, level 1 again. I know. But there's also a difference between addiction and cheating. You can be a cheater and not be an addict. You can be an addict and not be a cheater, because I wasn't in a relationship. I didn't cheat on anybody, but boy, was I an addict. Now, addicts in relationships tend to cheat one way or another. So, yeah.
So there's a whole bunch of stuff in the chat that I ignore the chat as I only answer questions in the Q&A because it's just too confusing. So, but yeah, so there to the person that was writing that, trust your gut. You know, he's a cheater, he's a liar, he's an addict. So
And somebody
whatever you think, it's unfortunately probably more. So
yeah, and I did notice somebody in the chat feature asking about is there a couples retreat? We don't have a retreat right now. What we do is we have an online work group that works really well for couples, facilitated by Susie LeBrock.
Dr. Susie LeBrock will be I hope to be able to talk to her tomorrow and get that posted. Again, we don't have it posted, so it will be on the seekingintegrity.com site. All of the work groups, the Out of the Doghouse, Sex Addiction 101, Porn Addiction 101, but don't even try to do a couple stuff if he isn't, you know, abstinent and working on recovery. Don't even try. It will be an exercise in frustration. Him, and I use genders, I'm sorry, but him getting into recovery, and then the two of you and you having support, and then the two of you doing the work on couples. But couples work early on is, you know, I want to say an unmitigated disaster most of the time. So
yeah, Dr. Fawcett, when he's on, he and I talk about this probably at least once a month. The question comes up: what is the order for healing and recovery? Generally, it works best when the addict is able to focus on his or her recovery early on, and the betrayed partner is able to focus on his or her recovery early on. And then once there is
recovery from a support standpoint,
right, once there's a modicum of sobriety on the addict's part and support, you know, he has a posse. And once the betrayed partner has a posse and some support, then it's time to come together and do couples work. If you try to do couples work too soon, he's not ready, she's not ready, or, you know, again, we're being, you know, gender specific, but it tends to be unproductive, and sometimes counterproductive. So there's a time and a place. You know, Tami, when people sign up for the couples work group, do we try to make sure they're ready usually?
None of the work groups. So that's a great point. We do not screen
Maybe
people.
we should.
No, I don't want that job. So
Right.
I screen people when they're coming to treatment at Seeking Integrity Treatment Program. A guy who is struggling to get and maintain sobriety, seekingintegrity.com, 14, 21, and 28 days. That's how you get a solid foundation. Otherwise, it's a whole bunch of putting these pieces together, working with a qualified therapist, ideally at least individual and group every week, doing I love the work groups. Yeah, I'm hearing such good feedback, including from therapists saying my clients, you know, really getting, you know, a good foundation. We've got drop-in groups, 12-step. I mean, there's a whole bunch of things. And I say this all the time. If the addict is participating in his or her recovery with the same energy that they participated in their addiction, they're going to do great. You know, if like the question that was like, oh, he won't, I wrote a blog about that. He won't do this. Don't expect things to be different. If he's or she's, you know, unwilling to do anything, then you can't expect things to get different. It won't happen. It'll get worse, but it won't get better. So
yeah, if nothing changes, nothing changes.
Right, exactly. So yeah.
Okay. Thank you everybody for being here. Tami, thank you for filling in for David.
Always a pleasure. Actually, we're going to do this again the first Wednesday of February, which I bet is next week. We're going to be doing this together at 9:30 for the Wednesday morning series. So join us again. Come ask us more questions. So bye, everybody. Thank you.
Have a good evening.